Donald Trump has become the first former president to be charged with federal crimes. He was arraigned today in a Miami court on 37 counts related to mishandling classified documents. With us now is John O'Connor. He's a legal analyst and author of Postgate: How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. He's also the host of Mysteries of Watergate podcast. He served as an assistant U.S. attorney in Northern California, representing the United States in both criminal and civil cases. John, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Kim.
So let's break down, first of all, Trump's 37 charges, the 37 counts relating to mishandling classified documents. Is he looking at jail time?
I think with this judge, no. I think he's probably should get probation. Now, if he had a different judge, I think one who's an anti-Trumper, I think he could be looking at 2 or 3 years. But I don't think he's going to get that here. I think this is a case, and I was a white-collar prosecutor myself. The main punishment you mete out as a white-collar prosecutor is just the stain on someone's record who is a professional. And that conviction alone is usually enough. Then you can put some probation restrictions on the fellow. So I don't think he's going to go to jail if this judge's assignment holds out. Now, on the other hand, I think it is highly likely that he'll get convicted on at least some of the charges. And I'm happy to break those down for you and compare and contrast.
Yeah, which ones do you think that? So there's 37. You don't think he's going to be convicted on all 37?
No, he has a good chance, at least as to the first 31, of an acquittal, because they're ho-hummers. They're okay. A fellow had classified documents, didn't take beautiful care of them, stacked some of them in the bathroom and some of them in this conference room and some of them here and some of them there. But contrast this with what Biden did. He's got his all over the place for 7 years, I might add. And also he had them in a place where Chinese and other foreign adversaries had availability, the Penn Biden Center. Hillary had documents on her unprotected server, and the consensus is among the intelligence agencies that her server was easily hacked. So those went over to intelligence agencies. So, and then of course, then she had her computer bashed to bits and bleach bit. Now she didn't do it. She was insulated from that. My point is, if you're just talking about handling classified documents, I think Trump is probably going to get off on those 31 charges. There's one document that he talked about over a recorded telephone conference, so that might be something that's special. But where he really faces jeopardy and where his case departs from those of Biden and Hillary, unfortunately for Trump, is that he has been pretty clearly, the last 6 counts 32 to 37, are lying and obstruction counts. He deliberately moved boxes so his lawyers wouldn't examine them, and Trump knowingly had his lawyers make false certifications that he had all the boxes, went through them. Trump was deeply involved. There's no way out of it. He's too close to it. He does no insulation like clever Hillary had. So I do think that those charges are very, very strong. They are self-proof. They've got electronic surveillance videos of moving boxes. They've got his lawyer's own testimony of Trump's talks with him. They've got emails back and forth with him and his assistant moving the boxes back and forth. They moved 64 boxes out of storage, only moved 30 back in. The lawyer looked at 30 boxes, not 64. So, Kim, this is unfortunately, I think Trump surrenders the moral high ground here. Up to now, I've told you every impeachment charge, in my view, has been bogus. I think they're very much, it's a partisan 2-tiered system. But now, in this case, a blind squirrel sometimes gets an acorn. And I think, fortunately or unfortunately, Jack Smith has stumbled onto a treasure trove of acorns here. And I think he's going to get convicted as sure as night follows day.
Okay, so I just want to go over what these 37 counts are. So 31 of the counts are willful retention of national defense information. So this is the holding of the classified documents, right?
Right.
Three counts are withholding or concealing documents in a federal investigation. So this is related to Trump and an aide allegedly concealing boxes of classified documents from law enforcement officials and the grand jury. So this isn't the actual possession of the classified documents. Is that right? This is just
Right. In other words,
what?
knowing that they're under subpoena and knowing that his lawyer had to make a certification in response to the subpoena and give the certification to the Department of Justice, that certification, which eventually would go to the court, that itself is a crime if it is knowingly made falsely. And in this case, they moved the boxes. Trump knew that the certification would be false. It was designed to be false. His lawyer, Evan Corcoran, did not know it was false.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another aide to Evan Corcoran who actually made the certification based upon what Evan Corcoran told her. Both of them feel, I think, that they were set up for this, and rightly so. They didn't do anything wrong, but they were given false information. So those three counts, they have those boxes being moved. They have them on surveillance video. So, and they
Okay.
have emails from Trump and his aides. So I
So
don't
that
see
one's
Trump getting out of that.
okay. And then two of the counts are false statements. And this is all written in the Washington Post, saying that related to false statements about classified documents being turned over to law enforcement and an alleged scheme to hide Trump's continued possession of the materials. So this is just
Right.
lying about saying, oh yeah, we turned them over, but they didn't, and they were lying about that. That's what this is.
Well, well, yes. In this case, it was other people who made the false statements that Trump conspired with. Like, for instance, one of them is his aide, a guy named Walt Nauta, who made false statements, and Trump knew they were false and was joining in with them. The other false statements were ones where the maker of the statement didn't know they were false, and that's his two lawyers. But he caused a false statement to be made. He knew it was false, would be false. His lawyers did not. So those are false statement charges. And again, all you have to do is cause the false statement. You don't have to utter those words yourself. So he's probably cooked on those, I think.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then I think there's a contempt of Cortland, if I'm not
It
mistaken.
the last one is conspiracy to obstruct justice.
Okay. Okay. Conspiracy to obstruct justice. Yes. All of this is really proven by the emails between him and his body aide. All you need is two to claim a conspiracy. And what that does, Kim, that allows the prosecutors to get in not only evidence of what Trump said, but also what his aide said, because statements of co-conspirators can be used against the other co-conspirators. If they're not in a conspiracy, what the other person says has no bearing. It's hearsay. But if they're conspirators, you can use the statements to each other as evidence against each of the conspirators. So all of the things that we've talked about, the other five counts, are all part of the conspiracy to obstruct justice, either by concealing boxes or by giving false statements. And all you need to do is prove one of those bad acts, to then be guilty of conspiracy. So once
Okay.
again, it's a very low burden for the prosecution.
Sounds like it. And other people are also being charged with these same counts, right? Because this involves other people. So are there charges that have been brought forward against them?
Well, just the
Do we
one
know?
person right now, I believe, Walt Nauta. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there may be other people that are named as unindicted co-conspirators, but I think right now the only people they have as knowingly and willingly being part of this are Trump and Nauta, who is his body man, very loyal to Trump. Other people participated, but I don't think they're conspirators because they were innocent, so to speak. But I think what people say is, though, Kim, is that there will be other people that will be witnesses, because there are other people that saw the boxes being moved. There are other people that likely heard Nauta say something or Trump say something. So you're going to find more witnesses than are noted in the indictment. But that said, the indictment itself is enough. If you just do nothing but take the evidence in the indictment, which they already have, and which comes from Trump's own mouth or the surveillance videos or his lawyer's own mouth, those things themselves are enough to form a very powerful case. The other witnesses will just be icing on the cake. And I don't take any, I take no joy in telling you this, none at all. I think it gives me a pit in my stomach to see a fellow who has been so relentlessly pilloried, I should say,
Right.
for all these years, and now knowing that the government is after him, he does this. It's inexplicable. He's not going to profit from it. Is it just for vanity? Apparently it is, but he did it,
Right.
and they have, they have him.
Well, right. But I mean, to what you're saying, it's really obvious that they've been going after Trump forever, since when he was running. And then, of course, as president, impeaching him twice. I mean, this has been political persecution since the beginning, the absolute hatred for him. So I could understand, I suppose, his reluctance to cooperate with any of these investigations when he's been just persecution after persecution after persecution. So is there any sort of defense? I understand he did it, but we're talking about the obstructing and false statements and withholding. These are not the same, because I think for the average American, what really matters to us and what we want to know is, did you sell state secrets to a foreign government? Did you compromise national security? Are you working as some sort of Manchurian candidate? That's what we want to know. Why are you holding on to this classified documents that you're not supposed to have? Hillary, why do you have these on your server, that, your own private server? Biden, why are these sitting in your garage with your Corvette? Or Mike Pence, why are these found in your Indiana home? The why to us matters. What did you do with these classified documents? It's not so much that you just had them sitting in your garage or in your basement. What did you do with them? That to us, I think, matters the most. So if they're just going to get the guy on, okay, well, we don't have any evidence that because when this story first came out, there were all these classified documents. It was he was selling secrets to Russia, or North Korea. They were making up all of these crazy allegations. They don't have any of that. So they're instead going with the lowest of the low in this entire thing, which is his reaction to another investigation against him. Shouldn't there be?
Right.
So is there some kind of defense there, or no?
Well, here's the thing. The short answer is no, but let me give you some fodder for your fire. Hillary Clinton was likely using her server for corrupt purposes, selling uranium one and getting $150 to $350 million from Russian allied interests. Is probably on those servers among those 30,000 emails. So yes, she corruptly used those, probably. Biden, he used his documents probably to curry favor both with the Chinese, with whom he was in corrupt alliance, and Burisma, the Privat Bank in Ukraine. So they actually used the documents for their own corrupt purposes. Whereas the odd thing about this is that I don't believe that there's a scent of any wrongful intent by Trump, other than egotistically wanting certain things that may or may not be important. There were 102 documents that he ended up not turning over. 102. Are they that important? Maybe that would help him prove that Russiagate was a canard. Maybe they would help him prove that there was a false election count or some conspiracy, say, with a server over in Ukraine or whatever it was that Hillary used on her to hide different things. But basically, Trump this is the terrible thing about it. He had no malign intent, no intent to injure the United States, unlike Biden and Hillary. But they get away with it, and Trump doesn't. So in terms of the morality is clearly on the side of Trump. The problem is that, as a former prosecutor, you care about the availability and quality of evidence. And when somebody's under subpoena, and he should know this, he just went through this in Russiagate when they tried to fabricate, if you recall this, Kim, they tried to fabricate 12 instances of obstruction that weren't obstruction at all. It's Trump saying, gee, I think Comey's a bad FBI director. Oh, that's obstruction. It wasn't. They tried to fabricate 12 instances, and they were ridiculous. And people are still talking about those 12 instances. If those were obstruction of justice, then every client I've ever had is almost obstructed justice when they say, gee, Mr. O'Connor, do I need to give these documents over to the other side? Yes, you've got to give them. That's not obstruction of justice. So what I am saying here is the terrible thing about this is, and the unfair thing about this is, Trump had no malign intent in terms of hurting the country. Egotistically, he wanted these documents for whatever purpose, and it's unclear why he kept taking them with him. They're like his babies. I understand why he wanted to keep one of the documents from Kim Jong-un, which was like a trophy. And it may well have been personal, and it may well be that he doesn't have to hand that over as a presidential record. But most of these are just classified documents which probably don't help him at all in any way. He probably would never
Yeah.
use them. And you can't use them publicly anyway. You can't go on a campaign trail and wave them around. So what good are they to him? He's not going to write a book using them. I don't think so. So the inexplicable thing here is, given the fact that there was this subpoena, and given the fact that there was intense pressure by the government, why he would do this. And to me, this will go down as a profound mystery. So you've got the nail right on the head, Kim, in terms of, as the philosophers say, is this malum in se? Is this evil in and of itself? No, it's a process crime. There's nothing wrong with what he did. Whereas contrast that with Biden and Hillary. There was wrong that they were intending. However, you've got a very provable case where Trump is front and center on tape or talking to his lawyer or on surveillance videos, doing something that they can prove is wrong in the face of a clear subpoena. So here's what I'm saying is, the public will see that, number one, he's guilty. Number two, he had no malign intent. Where that shakes out, my fear is, as a person that can't take 4 more years of Biden or his ilk, if this peels away 3% from the middle of the fold in this next election, it's going to cost any person of conservative and moderate sensibility. It's going to cost them the election. And so I worry about that. I worry about the conservative side of the aisle being split asunder over this. And so it's a matter of profound concern that I think we've got to keep a watch on and an eagle eye as to figure out what's the best way forward. A lot of this depending upon the polling. And I think you put your finger on it. If most people really feel that, and I'm talking about the middle of the spectrum. I'm not talking about the 40% that are going to vote for Trump. Yeah. What do the independents and suburban women think? I live in Marin County, California, which is full of lovely, well-educated, genteel women, of whom my wife is one. And they're not reacting well to this. I think the independents I know are not reacting well to this. I know what this is. I've been following this for 7 years now, and I understand what a canard the whole thing is. But most people don't get in the weeds, and and I
they
think
just see guilty for this. Yeah. Well, and that's so let me ask you this. So he's being charged with 37 counts. The 31 counts that you think he's going to be acquitted on, those are still crimes, right? Technically, they're crimes. So if that's the case, if these are crimes, then because my understanding is the reason why they did not charge Hillary Clinton or Mike Pence, Joe Biden's a little bit different because he's a sitting president, and I believe there's precedent not to charge a sitting president while they're sitting president, right? So, okay, we'll wait for him to no longer be sitting president. But at least Hillary Clinton and Mike Pence, the reason why they're not charging them is because they're saying, well, they didn't do these other 5 things, right? They weren't, when it was discovered they had these classified documents in unsecured places, they cooperated with authorities, and so therefore there's no charge against them. But to, the average person, the average American, that's bullshit. Excuse my language, but it is. If I commit a crime, it doesn't matter why I did it. It doesn't matter how I reacted after it. I'm going to get charged with the crime, and then we're going to see the courts decide. The juries are going to decide whether or not I should be convicted of that crime based on my intent. I don't know if you would know better than me as somebody who was a prosecutor. Is that something that is up to the prosecutor to be then the jury on whether or not you should just not be charged with the crime that you committed? It seems to me that they should be charged as well, and then bring it to the court. Let the courts decide. They'll probably be acquitted based on what you said, but they should still be charged, and that's fair.
Well, I would even say it's a stronger case against Hillary and Biden for intentional misuse of classified documents, and here's why. Trump has the Presidential Records Act. Under the Presidential Records Act, there is some period of time during which there's a transition, and you don't have to hand these things over within a second. and it's undefined by the Presidential Records Act. So the fact that he possesses these things is not in and of itself criminal. On the other hand, Hillary and Biden clearly were possessing classified documents, knowing. I mean, Hillary had 20 warnings not to put these things on an unclassified and unprotected server. And she probably put them on a server to hide her actions because she's probably doing a lot of things that she doesn't want anybody to see. Biden clearly
Allegedly,
knows
right?
through
Yeah.
all this stuff. Biden knows that the documents he's keeping at the Penn Biden Center, he shouldn't have there, but they give him the legitimacy of having all these secrets to tell his Chinese and Ukrainian buddies. So
Allegedly.
I would say, in other words, what I would say, Kim, is their mental intent, their mens rea, their guilty intent is far greater in possession than Trump's is. So I would
Right.
say if you're just comparing possession and use, they possessed and used willingly and knowingly. Trump did not. And so he's much better than they are in terms of handling and possession of classified materials. Like I say, so
Yeah.
everything gets down to these lying and obstruction charges, which befuddle me as to why he would do that.
Well, and the
Otherwise, he's clean as a
headlines,
whistle.
and you know what the headlines are going to say when he's convicted of these 5 charges. They're going to say, "Oh, he was convicted of holding those classified documents," and they're going to make the headlines look like it's because he was misusing these classified documents to do nefarious things. That's how the average, when you're talking about the average suburban woman independent, is going to interpret it if she's not following the story in depth. It's just going to be like, well, he did something bad with state secrets. That's what he ended up getting convicted of, even though that's not the case. And the fact that Hillary and Mike Pence at this point are not being charged with the same crimes of willful retention of national defense information, or unauthorized possession of classified documents or whatever, that the fact that they're not, then they're like, well, okay, then they didn't do anything wrong. But I do believe that, I think the point, and I think you're making it and I'm making it, is that should be up for the juries to decide. That should be up for the courts to decide. We should be able to know, we should charge them with the same crimes and then investigate and say, did you do nefarious things with state secrets? That's what we want to know. That's the pie that Americans want to know about. Is, did you do something really bad against the country with these classified documents, or for yourself, to benefit yourself with these classified documents? What did you do with it? That's really the crux of the question. That's not being asked. Instead, they're just brushing it under the rug with everybody else, putting Trump in the spotlight. As you mentioned, he's going to be probably convicted of these 5 charges, and then it's going to be misread in the headlines and misinterpreted in the headlines going forward. And it's, of course, going to harm the current election, which, again, that's meddling in an American election, which shouldn't be happening. The others need to be charged as well. And then it needs to be brought to the table that Joe Biden will be charged the minute he's no longer president of the United States. That's fair, but that's not what's happening. This is obviously a witch hunt. And again, another one. And I was a Bernie Sanders person. I come from the left, and many of us are still seeing this. We're seeing that this is just a repeated witch hunt against the president of the United States. Many of us didn't like him, didn't support him, found him to be crass and crude. But nonetheless, this is worse, what's happening in this country, this political weaponization of our DOJ and FBI. And, this is just absolutely terrible. So, John, thank you for joining us and breaking this down for us. Really informative, actually. So really appreciate that.
Well, Kim, you may have come up with the best defense yet, is that he didn't think he did not have criminal intent. Unfortunately, the instructions will probably be the intent was just to hide from the prosecutors. But you're right. There's all this stuff you'll see on various channels that, Trump was looking to sell these to the Russians. That's a lot of nonsense. Trump had no such desires. And the ironic thing is that that's exactly what Biden and Hillary were doing in a corrupt way. So that's what's the shame of it.
And it should all be taken to court, all of them, and I think paraded around, and we should do the investigations, and that's fine, but it needs to be fair. John O'Connor, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find your work? I know you've written your book. You were the guy and we've had you on before, if people don't remember, who revealed who Deep Throat actually was, the actual identity of Deep Throat. Where else can people find your stuff?
Well, besides Amazon and Barnes and Noble, they should go to postgatebook.com. Postgatebook.com. I've got 2 books on there: The Mysteries of Watergate, What Really Happened, and then Postgate. And Postgate's the one that was really the eye opener, and it really takes the press apart for willfully fabricating our country's history. That's the best way
Yeah.
to put it. And that's what we see today is people writing the first drafts of history and journalism, and those drafts are usually or often false, not usually, but
Yeah.
often false.
John O'Connor, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Great talking to you, Kim. Thank you.